green light come on. And I hear noise.
Yeah.
Numbers chapter 30. And I know I made mention several times that the last couple of 2 or 3 chapters, it seems like God is telling Moses a different, thing in each chapter. They seem disconnected, if you know what I mean. It's almost like since Moses is coming up to hit the time that he'll be taken back to his people, God's winding up all these little odds and ends that he wants Moses to do. Because last week we talked about how many animals were sacrificed. All those, 1,000, almost 1,100 lambs, over 100 bulls, 37 rams, and 30 goats. Well, this past week I happened to be looking at one video on the gospel broadcasting, and I think they were talking about Solomon in Jerusalem sacrificed 22,000 bulls and over 100,000 lambs. 22,000 bulls and 100,000 lambs in a day. Now, that amount of blood, that amount of sacrifice, people were busy. And you can just imagine.
We probably slaughter that many animals in this country every day.
Yes.
But you think about the plants that it takes to process all that.
With all the plants throughout the country, we probably slaughter that many every day. But this was done in Jerusalem, one spot. It just makes my mind just go, what?
And it was all done by physical labor. There was no machinery. You had to deal with them. You had to restrain them. You had to do everything. Had to be done by the priests.
And the priests, there was only a few of them, but the rest of the Levites had to help and participate. And even so, the skinning of the animals and maintaining those fires and burning, and it's just, it's huge. It's like I say, it messed with my mind. And then here I get to chapter 30. Well, now my Bible's got little titles on various different parts, and it says the vows. Moses said to the heads of the tribes of Israel, this is what the Lord commands. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said. Notice, Moses is talking to the heads of the tribes. He's not talking to the assembly now. I think before, Moses, he probably talked, but imagine being on the outside. 3 million people. His voice, Moses was not the huge projection type. He didn't have a microphone. He didn't have speakers. So the people on the outside didn't hear it. So why did he do this? I just noticed this, He's talking to the heads of the tribes. Why did he do that? Well, they need to go back and tell their own particular tribe and get all them together so that they impart this knowledge to their people, so they're taken care of. And then here's where we get, I guess, a little bit of controversy. When a young woman still living in her father's house makes a vow to the Lord or obligates herself by a pledge, and her father hears about her vow or pledge, but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her father forbids her when he hears about it, none of her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. The Lord will release her because her father has forbidden her. Pretty wild, isn't it? So a woman could not. Now you see why I say before, when the daughters come and said, our father didn't have a son, give us our inheritance. That was a huge undertaking. And when you get a glimpse of it here, a young woman still living in her father's house, if she makes an oath or tries to make a pledge, and her father hears about it, he says no. It's nullified, and the Lord will release her from that vow. If she marries after she makes a vow, or after her lips utter a rash promise by which she obligates herself, and her husband hears about it, but says nothing to her, then her vows or the pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband forbids her, when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that obligates her or the rash promise by which she obligates herself, and the Lord will release her. Now you got to understand about the custom in the Jewish community, or the Israeli community. When a woman was getting married to somebody, she was becoming betrothed. What does the word betrothed mean? Pardon? Promise to. So if she got married today, she's betrothed. She's probably still living with her mom and dad. Transfer of ownership of this woman didn't. Notice I said it very cautiously. This transfer of ownership of this woman didn't take place overnight. It usually happened over about 9 months to a year. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because here her father can say no to her vow, and if he doesn't say no, her husband can say it. Why is that? What if she made a quick oath?
It says rash.
Pardon?
Or rash.
Yeah.
Usually that's something made in haste and really thinking it through.
So you got two people that could say no in that period of time to prevent her from obligating herself to doing something illogical or that might cause her harm or a great misfortune. Okay? So it's a protection device, if you will. Because once you make a vow, you make a promise. I'll see you next Tuesday. What happens? You forget Tuesday. Don't we do this very often? Meanwhile, that other person has canceled everything that they wanted to do. They had something else come up, but they said, no, we were going to meet. And you don't show up. You don't. It's an oath. It's an oath, isn't it?
That's the way they treated it.
And we're going to do the clothing drive.
Well, yeah, and I intend on doing that, but I've never thought about it being a vow or an oath.
Well, what would you call it then?
In our terms now, we say we're bond.
Yes.
In a sense, that's binding. Yeah, I just never thought of it like that. Well, we don't do it anymore.
Now becomes the question, why don't we do it anymore? But see, now here it is. You or he must not break his word, and he must do everything he said. Verse 2. If you make an oath or a promise or a pledge, you should honor that pledge, right?
Okay, so I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to meet you, and something comes up. If I call and let you know, have you broken it then?
No, I don't think so. You maintain your commitment to somebody else, but not to tell them now you're making your commitment.
Yeah, we caution ours now. We say, the Lord willing, the creeks don't rise.
We say those, but okay, but that comes here a little bit later in this chapter. He talks about that in a way. In a way.
Usually an oath or a vow is not some trivial thing. I'm talking about everyday
Yeah.
occurrence. It's if the Lord let me live with you again, when they're stressed, will make vows
Mm-hmm.
or oaths. The Lord lets me live, I'll be faithful till the day I die. And that oath goes by the side of the road when that person recovers their health. Or that's just one. That's the idea of it being rash. We may find ourselves in a very pressing circumstance, or maybe in an grateful we say, boy, I am so grateful to God I'm going to do this. That's a vow.
Yeah. When you're, quote unquote, on your deathbed or really sick, Lord, if you just get me over this, I will be in that pew every Sunday night. Any there, I'll be doing this. You will never find another person that'll work as hard as I will. Just get me over this. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it just makes me think that God, if you do this for me, I will sacrifice whoever comes out of my house. And that sacrifice with her. And that's how important, when you say something, and I don't mean that rule applies to everything, but when we say something, we should, carry through.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, or even
I've heard a lot of people, lotto. Boy, I know I could, Lord, if I win the lotto with $1 billion, you know I'm going to give you 30, 40% of that. And look at how many missionaries I can support. Look how many churches I can help fund. Passing the plate here this week, $1,000 a year. Where's the hypocrisy there? Don't we do that? We get into a corner or we get into trouble and we ask God for everything. And at the same time, we don't even do things today what we should be doing, do we?
it's the vow we take when we
Yeah. My mind, my heart, and my soul belong to Him. But yet we won't even open this book during the week at the study. We don't even commune one with another like we should, do we? I'll be honest, I'll be the first to say, and Chuck, I mean nothing bad by this, I don't like Christmas parties of any kind. I just don't like them. Now, my wife, she loved them. And with the kids, you know how kids are. I'm not going to deny them the fun and joy that they share with their comrades. So we had a Christmas tree. I hated putting it up. I hated taking it down. Yeah, bah humbug. What do you want me to do now, honey? I did whatever my wife and kids wanted. So, yeah, I speak with a forked tongue.
So it wasn't a religious thing for you. It was simply you didn't like it.
Jesus was probably born sometime in April through July. And we celebrate his death. So this birth thing. So I can wink my eyes and go for it, but I just don't like it. That's me. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
I'll be with you. I haven't put up a tree since 1968. not a good day for me because every person that I had, they're all dead.
Yeah.
And so this is the day, my birthday is on Christmas Eve. This is one day, one thing I could do without.
Yes.
And all the celebration, just a mess.
I'm happy I'm happy that people like to do it. But why are you only doing it one day a year? Why aren't you doing it 365 days a year? I think that's where I'm coming from. The hypocrisy of a lot of these people that sit there and say, Merry Christmas. What? Why don't you do that every day? Brother or sister, I wish you the best every single day. And we don't do that, do we?
Well, I do.
Well,
You have a great day, man. I hope your day goes better than it's been so far. I mean, I do that all the time.
That's the way I am. I can't help it. Like I said, whatever my wife wanted, what my kids wanted, I was going to do everything I could to provide to them. For me, I don't like it. My Christmas tree's still in my garage, and since she's been dead here now, it has never been put up. You send me a Christmas card, I won't acknowledge it. I don't really care. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm glad you thought of me and sent me one, but at the same time, I don't do Christmas. Period. Bah humbug. Come on.
You don't want it. You don't want anybody else to have it either. Is that
No, go for it. Have fun. Have a big party. I'm not going to rain on your parade.
Now, were you that way when you were growing up as a kid?
Not as a kid, but when I became a Christian, I didn't. Once I knew that Christ was probably born sometime between April and July, why are we celebrating this pagan day? Yeah, but it's not happy holidays to me. It's Merry Christmas.
I agree, but I don't.
But now you got.
Christ on Christmas. That's why I would just call it. You could go to a Santa Claus party.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it is.
But the thing is I know you're going to be there and you're going to say Merry Christmas all the time, and you're going to say, and that's going to irritate me to no end. So, I mean, it's like I say, it's a quirk in me that I can't shake and I can't get rid of it. And I wish you the many happy returns. Yes, ma'am. It's not Christ Mass. It's not that important a thing. To me, what we do every Sunday morning, that is the important thing. We celebrate his death. His birth, I mean, if he wanted us to celebrate a day in honor of his birth, he would have told us when he was born. Wouldn't he?
Well,
Yes, sir.
I'm just going to say, it doesn't have any meaning to us that way because the church still assembles itself on the 25th of December, and that's the first day of the week.
Yes.
You're not to have a celebration like the world does. It's for that one purpose, to worship God. And I think that really separates us from everybody.
We have 1,000 members that attend this building. December the 25th is a Sunday. How many people do you suppose will be there? Pardon? I agree with that 100%, but how many realistically will be there?
We'll have more because there are a lot of people who go on Easter and Christmas that don't go any other time.
But you'll have, I would maintain to you, you'd probably have about half of what you normally do. And they would be bringing their family members. So you're going to have half of your congregation won't be there because it's Christmas Day. They're home with their family and kids.
I've never seen that day there. I mean, we've got Christmas ball on Wednesday night. And
Yes.
Very, very much. And, a lot of times, now Wednesday night is really different, unless people are going out of town. We did that when we had little kids. We'd go, her parents and my parents both lived away, and we would go, but we always went to services when we went, It was never a holiday for us.
No.
So,
It would be too hard to explain to children, trying to make those,
Distinctions.
so we tried to play it absolutely straight with our children.
Well, they are watching everything you say and do. They really are. And they're soaking it in. And, well, I guess this is coming down. Why are these vows so important that God is speaking through Moses, telling him, tell the people this? Get down to verse 9. Any vow or obligation taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding on her. What do we say here in the church? Divorce is deplorable, right? Any vow or obligation taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding on her. Why are they making a distinction? Pardon? Yes, okay. I just wonder the choice of words and why they're in the subject matter. It's just me that's bothered by choice of these things. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow or obligates herself by a pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her and does not forbid her, then all her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband nullifies them when he hears about them, then none of the vows or pledges that came from her lips will stand. Her husband has nullified them, and the Lord will release her. Her husband may confirm or nullify any vow she makes or any sworn pledge to deny herself. But her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or the pledges binding on her. And he confirms them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If, however, he nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he's responsible for her guilt. When a husband hears about an oath or pledge she has made, he's got one day to say yes or no. Not saying anything is an affirmation. He's got one day to say no. So if he hears about it today, tomorrow's too late. She is obligated to fulfill that oath and that pledge. Yeah, okay. Now, this is the rules that God has given Moses to tell the people that a husband and his wife, a father and his daughter. This is what's going on. These are the regulations the Lord gave Moses concerning relationships between a man and his wife and between the father and his young daughter still living in his house. Extremely male dominated. Jews in the first century, how do they get around this? I know, okay, I swear to God, I'm going to do this. Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like to use those words. I always say my word, like my word means anything.
it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's supposed to. Jews in the first century, they swore by Jerusalem, by the tabernacle, by a host of things, by word. As long as you swore by anything besides God and his name, then you're not making a real oath or promise or pledge. This is what the Jews did. They tried to find ways around God's law. So if I say my word, yeah, in a way I'm trying to get around God's word. I'm getting away from his commands, aren't I?
Do that today too. All the things that are happening in the church, it's not specifically forbidden, and it's okay.
Yeah. And we're trying to find the loopholes. We're becoming like the Pharisees, the rabbis. What is the loophole that allows me to do? And it's like I said before, here's the line in the sand. I want my toenail over it, but I don't want my foot to touch the ground. Isn't that the way we all are somehow or another? We all...
And so, and in fact, that's what we're doing. We're crossing the line.
Okay, well, let's look at it another way. One day we all hope to be in heaven, being in the presence of God. God's all good, right? All truth, all knowing. In him can be no sin whatsoever. No little white lie. Every day we go through our lives that we sin. We got sin in our life every single day. We cannot be in the presence of God, could we? Because he can tolerate any sin whatsoever. So, what do we do? My word, this is getting deep now. You see what I mean? Don't we say and do things like this? I didn't fulfill an obligation I should have done. I missed my dental appointment yesterday. But, okay, we're going to pay for that because they're going to charge you. God's going to charge us too, except through the blood of Christ, right?
What he's doing with these Jews here, he's telling them how to operate. He's telling us how to operate and how to get forgiveness of sin.
And yet, in the first century, the rabbis and the Pharisees, they're going through trying to change what God has said so that they can do what they're doing. In today's culture, aren't we doing the same thing? Aren't we trying to, change it many times in a lot of the classes? And I know Chuck will bear witness to this. Okay, I've been studying with this guy. He wants to be baptized. Going from here to there, he trips and falls, hits his head, and dies. Is he saved? That's a common little thing, isn't it? I don't know what God's going to do. I'm not worried about it. But if he was meant to be saved, he would be dunked. He would be baptized, right? And that's all. I'll leave it at that. I can't say one way or the other. I'm not a judge. That's his department. I will let him take all that matters. But that is a common argument that you hear in a lot of classes.
But we always take the most extreme.
Mm-hmm.
What is the likelihood of these things that we keep pulling out there? We take the most extreme example we can come up with.
I think the reason why we do that is because if you will concede that no, he is not saved, then now let me come back a little bit, and I'm going to give you another example that's not as bad. And then another one that's not as bad. In other words, I'm trying to tear apart what you're saying and doing. But I have to get you to some point where I can snare you back into a falsehood, if you will. Okay? Does that make sense? I think we all do that to some extent. It's a matter of arguing with somebody. I don't like your position. Okay, well, if I can get you to concede this, I got you. It's like a debate. And a lot of these debates, they make a lot of good points, pro and con. But you usually find where they split up. listen to a lot of good debates. I hear some of the people on water baptism. Do you have to have water baptism? A lot of good arguments. They're wrong. They're good arguments. And if I ever concede one point, then I have to concede somewhere else too. And I'm not about to do that. If the Bible says it, we have to do it. I might not really like it much, but what the Bible tells me to do, right? Is that what you're going to do? Well, here we are in chapter 31. And the title in this Bible says, Vengeance on the Midianites. The Lord said to Moses, take vengeance on the Midianites for the Israelites. After that, you'll be gathered to your people. So Moses said to the people, arm some of your men to go to the war against the Midianites and carry out the Lord's vengeance on them. Send into battle 1,000 men from each of the tribes of Israel. So 12,000 men armed for battle, 1,000 from each tribe, were supplied from the clans of Israel. Moses sent them into battle, 1,000 from each tribe, along with Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, who took with him articles from the sanctuary and trumpets for signaling. Vengeance does not mean revenge. Make sure you understand. Vengeance is not a revenge thing. Vengeance is an expression of God's authority of being challenged or, I guess, disobedient to what he has said. Why is he going after the Midianites? We just went through that a few chapters. The women. They caused Israel to commit whoredom, whatever you want to call it, prostitution. They enticed the men. And then once they enticed the men, what did they do? Got them to worship Baal. Right? So these women, now, you might not think too much of it. Who was Moses' father-in-law? Jethro, a priest of Midian. So here Moses is sending the Israelites to go kill his wife's family. You find that remarkable? I mean, whew. To me, that's sort of, wow. They fought against the Midian, as the Lord commanded Moses, and killed every man. Among their victims were the 5 kings of Midian. They also killed Balaam, son of Beor, with the sword. The Israelites captured the Midianite women and children and took all the Midianite herds, flocks, and goods as plunder. They burned all the towns where the Midianites had settled, as well as all their camps. They took all the plunder and spoils, including the people and animals, and brought the captives, spoils, and plunder to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and the Israelite assembly at their camp on the plains of Moab, by the Jordan, across from Jericho. They brought all the women back, the ones that enticed the Israelites. You don't find that funny? Well, take a look at what happens here. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and all the leaders of the community went to meet him outside the camp. Why did they go outside the camp to meet him? They weren't allowed inside the camp. They were unclean. Okay. Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders. They brought back the women. They brought back the women. When you go see a doctor because, oh boy, I've got something right here. It's really bad. The doctor says, you got cancer. Here, he sticks the needle in, he pulls something, and then he takes it out. And he said, that should help. Did he get all the cancer? I don't think so. Well, you went into a median to try to take out this cancer, and what did you do? You brought the cancer back to camp. You brought these women back. So, have you allowed all the women to live, he asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and were the means of turning the Israelites away from the Lord. And what happened at Peor? So that a plague struck the Lord's people. That was when they killed, 24,000 that died. That was the first punishment, if you will. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man. But save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Why do you suppose they want to do that? The women teach the children, right? These women were well versed in the worship of Baal. They're going to teach them the ways that they had learned. You don't need to bring the cancer into your camp that's going to re-educate and infect the rest of the camp. You don't want to do that. Now look what Moses says. All of you who have killed anyone or touched anyone who was killed must stay outside of the camp 7 days. On the third and seventh day, you must purify yourselves and captives. Purify every garment as well as everything made of leather, goat hair, or wood. Then Eleazar the priest said to the soldiers who had gone to battle, this is the requirement of the law that the Lord gave Moses. Gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, lead, and anything else that can withstand fire must be put through the fire, and then it will be clean. But it must also be purified with water of cleansing. Whatever withstand fire must be put through the water. On the seventh day, wash your clothes, and you will be clean, and then you can come into camp. So they're going to follow the cleansing rituals. Lord said to Moses, you and Eleazar the priest and the heads of the community are to count all the people and animals that were captured. Divide the spoils between the soldiers who took part in the battle and the rest of the community. From the soldiers who fought in the battle, set apart as tribute for the Lord, 1 out of every 500, whether persons, cattle, donkeys, sheep, or goats. Take this tribute from their half share and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part. From the Israelites' half, select 1 out of every 50, whether persons, cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, or other animals. Give them to the Levites, who are responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded. The plunder remaining from the spoils that the soldiers took was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, 32,000 women who had never slept with a man. Huge amount of property. And this is 12,000 people that brought this back to them. The half share of those who fought in the battle was 337,500 sheep, of which to the Lord 675. And for the cattle, 72. For the donkeys, 61. And the people, 32. That was just from the soldiers' share of the battle. Then you talk about Israelites. Their total turns out to be 6,750 sheep, over 700 cattle, 600 donkeys, 120 girls. This went to the Levites. Okay. Then, verse 48. Then the officers who were over the units of the army, the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds, went to Moses and said to him, Your servants have counted the soldiers under our command, and not one is missing. Haven't been in the army. You don't go into any battle and not lose a single person. You always have somebody being killed. 12,000 went into battle, 12,000 came back. That is absolutely amazing. Being an officer like that, so we have brought as an offering to the Lord the gold articles each of us acquired. Armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, necklaces to make atonement for ourselves before the Lord. Their total, they collected over 16,750 shekels. That's about 400 pounds. At about $1,600 an ounce for gold. Well, yeah, I think it's up to 1,800, but I'm just using round numbers. That's over $10 million in today's money. Yeah, but I mean, and then now, that's not all of it. Because as was custom when you went into battle, if I'm just a regular on the front line fighter, I go into a house and I kill everybody in there. Oh, look, there's gold. It goes in my pocket. When the war's over, this is mine. That was common. You see something you like, you appropriated it. It became yours. The commanders, they got their own share of all this gold and spoils of war, if you will. They took all this. But for these officers to give up all that amount of gold, 400 pounds of gold, over $10 million, whew, they weren't the best well-paid individuals. But yet here, they give up it all. Did the soldiers? Each soldier had taken plunder for himself. Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold for the commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds and brought it to the tent of meeting as a memorial for the Israelites before the Lord. Seems a little disjointed in a lot of ways. A little complicated, if you will. It's just looking at these numbers and going through and trying to figure out how much things are, the amount of animals that are being used, the amount of money, the amount of sacrifice going on. It's huge. It just boggles the mind. Or it does me. And
Wondered about all those sacrifices and where it all went. You know, how it was, first of all, when you killed them, what happened, blood, all whatever.
well, you notice that Moses was told these people are unclean now. If you have touched somebody that's died, now if you're fighting and you stab somebody, you have touched them. You are unclean for 7 days. So, I mean, when you look at all the little rules and commands that God has given us, you got to follow them all, right? But, okay, I see you got a nice big diamond ring on your hand. Okay, that goes in my pocket. That becomes my plunder. The commander of hundreds and thousands, they collected a bunch of other stuff too because your pockets get so full. And so they do another sweep and they burn the whole place down. I know my time's up. I tried to do it quick.